Good afternoon, everybody. Um, it's the Friday reading, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time. And this is Book of Hours. We try to go live every Friday to do a reading from something that we like or feel that is appropriate to what's going on in the world today. Anybody who wants to give me a message that they can hear me okay, that would be really helpful. And first of all, before I forget, I would like to thank every single one of you who has donated to the channel and to us for helping us get through this difficult time of unemployment. Just a quick recap. We started something called the Daily Report a couple of weeks ago because JP's department at his corporate job was eliminated, along with himself and many of his mostly male colleagues were also eliminated from their jobs. So, in order to supplement our income, we decided to do something called the Daily Report. And we have set ourselves a monthly goal, which is $500. And so far, we are only $180 short of that monthly goal. So, today is March 21st. We have been able to raise $320 of that $500 goal. So that means that if 10 of you want to donate $18, if I know how to do math, then that would really help. Or if, does that work? Or 9 of you want to donate $20, then we could make our goal. So I want to thank all of you who have come to the, just stepped it up. And whether it's a patron who's decided to donate a little bit more, or whether it's a regular listener who's not subscribed to either Patreon or Substack, and you have made a one-time donation, it's been immensely helpful. It really does help. So I really want to thank you for that. We were able to pay our utility bills up to date because this current situation that we're in, where there's no employment, was not something that we really expected, which is usually the case, right? So, and there are millions of people exactly in our position right now who are also unemployed and going through the same kind of issues. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And also thank you for the great advice, the great health advice that people have given me over the last week or so since the last time I went live. I disclosed, that I was having some heart issues, and things seem to have turned a corner, so that's good. I am not injured in any real way, in my opinion, so I think I'll be fine. And I want to thank you for sending over, your advice and your links to different articles and your recommendations and suggestions for different things that I could do to help with heart issues. So thank you for that. Before I begin the reading, which is something that a friend recommended. So our friend who stayed with us for a week during the week of Mardi Gras back in late February, early March, recently sent me an email and said, "Oh, this is interesting." And she's right. It's very interesting. And it has to do with San Francisco and somebody who is being vetted or is running against Nancy Pelosi in her district in San Francisco. This is not for the speaker role or the House, or what is Nancy? Not the speaker.
She's just a congressperson now.
Right. So she's only a congressperson now, and she was Speaker of the House. So this is not for the Speaker of the House role or anything like that. This is just to take her place in this particular district in San Francisco. So that's always interesting to us because we know that San Francisco is a seat of power and often has a lot of influence in the federal government. But before I do that, I want to talk about an unemployment story. Since we are thrown into this environment where we are learning a lot about what it's like to be unemployed in 2025 and in the 21st century. And the last time that we really had to deal with this, situation was we dealt with it very briefly in 2018 when we left San Francisco and moved to Pittsburgh. But we found a job in the service industry and sort of fell off the track as far as like trying to find work in the corporate sector. We just ended up working like in the school/service industry, and that worked for us for a time. So we tried a little bit to jump back into the corporate sector and went through a little bit of the interview process back in early 2018 when we moved to Pittsburgh, but we found that there was no there, so we went a different direction. So prior to that, really, our real parlaying with the unemployment industry was all the way back in, say, 2014, 2015. JP had a steady job in 2014, 2015, where he was working for a corporation, a major financial corporation. He was running the department out of the San Francisco office, and he was the only person there, and they just unceremoniously let him go because they closed down that department. Kind of the same thing that happened with the recent department closure that took place in February of this year. So that was all the way back in 2014. So it's really been about 10 years since we've been in this position where we're sort of in the unemployment sector, where we have to, go through the whole thing, right? So what we're finding, we're learning a lot is what I'm trying to say. So 10 years ago, it was one way. And so now in 2025, it's different. It's a lot different. First of all, I think the number one difference is that there's fraud. There's a lot of fraud. JP has talked about ghost jobs. He's talked about, jobs that don't really exist. He's talked about scammers. And so that seems to be something that you have to factor into. If you're applying for 100 jobs a day, then you have to factor in that maybe 30 of those jobs are probably scam jobs. They don't really exist. And then another factor in this position that we're in 2025 is that the jobs are, even though the corporations may be putting the job descriptions on their websites, that they're not necessarily real. Is that they're doing something called due diligence in order for their funders and their VC, and their higher level people to make it look like they're trying to fulfill a need in order to qualify for funding for the next quarter. So a lot of times, you'll see these jobs and they don't really exist because they're there to just seem like they exist in order for the company to get funding. Okay, so there's that going on as well. So that's another factor. And I would say that's probably also about 30%. So of that 100%, of those 100 jobs per day that you apply for, 30 of them are total total scams, total fraud. 30 of them are sort of quasi scammy. They're not like it's the company putting the job up and pretending like they really need this person, but really what they're doing is showing to the world and to their funders, hey, look, we're putting these jobs up here. See all the funding we need? We need all this funding because look at all these jobs we need to fill. Okay, so that's about 30% as well. And so you have another 33%, 40%. And of those jobs, a good percentage of them are real, but unfortunately, they are, you've got a million people that are swamping the internet with applying for these jobs as well. So to get through, the competition is fierce, in other words. So it's a totally different situation than it was in 2014 when he first found himself, on the job market after this major financial corporation closed his presence in San Francisco. Okay, so what is the latest story with us? There have been some good things. The and agencies, we notice that agencies tend to have like the real jobs, like recruiting agencies, or back in the day they were called temp agencies. So these agencies are legit. They have the legitimate jobs. They are working with on brand clients or big name corporations, or sometimes even smaller companies, because if an agency is going to put up a real job, then of course, then the agency will get paid and the agency can stay in operation as well. So it benefits the agency to put up real jobs and not fake ones. Okay, so but a lot of people are going to agencies and have been going to agencies for years. And agencies are typically really helpful. Like recruiting agencies are really helpful for applicants or candidates or talent, because they will speak on behalf of the talent to the client. And they will also offer really good talking points in case the talent goes on an interview with the client. The agency or the recruiter will say, okay, so before you go and interview for this job, here are some talking points about the role that you should bring up. Here's some character quirks about the hiring manager that you'll be meeting with that you want to pay you want to pay attention to. Here's a couple of things that could really some personal things that you might want to say. They really respond well when candidates or the talent bring this up. So basically, the recruiter is there to coach the talent in the whole process. Okay. So JP has been with a recruiting agency since before time. It's probably for 30 years now.
Late 90s.
Yeah, the late 90s. He's been with this recruiting agency off and on for the late 90s. And when he's in between full-time jobs, like he was in 2014, they put him on to some really excellent long-term assignments. And he's always had a very good relationship and excellent interaction with the recruiters that work at this agency. So they have a site that you can go to and apply for jobs. So he's been going and applying for various jobs on their site. And there was one job in particular that he was slightly resistant to applying for, but went ahead and did it anyway. And it was just for like a 2-month assignment. The pay wasn't great, but I was like, look, I agree with what some of the recruiters are saying out there, which is it's better to be employed, even if it's just for a couple of months while you're looking for that bigger gig or that full-time, more, longer term contract, or maybe a full-time job, because at least you're still in the game. You're still, working, you're still learning the tools and understanding the trade, and you're still part of the process, right? So he applied for the job back on the 12th, I believe it was. The job had been up since the 7th. So right now the job has been open. This sort of temporary job has been open for 3 weeks. And the job went up on the 7th. I believe he applied for it on the 12th or around there. And, like with many things, he'll apply for something and then he'll get an auto canned response that says you are one of many applicants, usually in the 100 to as much as 1,700 range. So you're one of 1,700 applicants who have applied for this 2-month job. Good luck. And so that's sort of a canned auto AI response that the agency has created for all of these applicants, because they can't personally email 1,700 applicants for one little job every time. They'd never get any work done. So they created these sort of auto responses. So we got the auto response that said, "Thank you for your interest." And on last week, he got a personal message from a recruiter at the agency that said, "I see that you applied for this job back on the 12th." So this would have been, I don't know, like maybe she emailed him. Yeah, so I see you applied for the job on the 12th. We've had it up on our site since the 7th. And she emailed him, I believe it was the 13th on Thursday, and said, "Are you interested in this? Because this is an incredibly unique and very niche job. And the client who's been interviewing our applicants or our talent is finding that no one can really fit the bill. But as I was looking through your portfolio, I feel like you would be the best talent for this job. So please, can I please, pretty please put you in front of the client?" And of course, JP said, "Of course, I will definitely talk to the client." So she said, what the recruiter said, "What day would you like to meet with the client?" And JP said, "I'd like to meet with her on Tuesday," because we had things going on Monday. And the recruiter scheduled the interview for Monday, of course. So that was mistake number 1. She got the day wrong. So that kind of, but that was okay. We discovered all of this on Friday. So we had time to rearrange our Monday schedule so that he could meet with the client on Monday and not Tuesday as he had originally requested. So they met on on Monday. Now, in a recruiter situation where a recruiter is introducing talent to a client, usually what happens is the recruiter will pop into the interview for the first 30 seconds. And he or she will say something like, "Hello, talent. Hello, client. I'm so happy that I could put you two together. I think that talent can really fulfill this role. And client, I think that you'll really love what talent has to offer." Client, talent, and client. Talent is applicant. Talent would be JP, right? The unemployed person who's applying. So that's what they call applicants. They call them talents. So I hope you guys have a great session. I hope you have a great interview. Both of you reach back to me as soon as it's done. I would love to get some feedback. Bye-bye now. And then they sign off, leaving the applicant and the client together to have the official interview. So that introduction, which usually takes around 15 seconds to maybe 30 seconds, that introduction never happened. So that was red flag number 2. First, she got the date wrong, and then she never did an official introduction between the applicant and the client. And this sort of got my heckles up. I'm very intuitive. I'm very sensitive about these things. I am a stickler for protocol. And when these things didn't happen, my body sort of reacted to that. I was starting to get heart palpitations and starting to feel a little bit concerned that something was not right, because in the 30 years that JP has been with this agency, with this recruiting agency, that has never happened. There has always been sort of an informal introduction between himself and the person he's interviewing with. So that was a huge red flag to me, and it signaled something wasn't right, some inconsistency that didn't track. Okay. So then JP had one of the best, if not the best, conversations he's ever had on an interview. The client is very creative and the role is very unique. And the client all but said, I love you. When can you start? She all but said that. But because it's not her doing the official interview, she has to do it through the recruiting agency. She can't offer a job to the applicant or the talent. It has to come through the recruiting agency. So excellent discussion, wonderful interview, hit all of the right talking points. It was scheduled for 45 minutes. It went about an hour. Everything was perfect. Everything was great. So JP, they say their goodbyes, and she, before they say goodbye, she says, I need to make a decision either today, Monday, or tomorrow, Tuesday, because I'm leaving Wednesday. So that also gave JP kind of a little bit of a sinking feeling, because whenever there is a situation where there's timing and that time is of the essence, and you're kind of up against the clock, is when mistakes are made. So JP gets off the phone with her. Really great conversation, really wonderful. Immediately calls the recruiter and says, where are you? I'm done with my interview. I had a great discussion with the client. Call me back immediately so that I can tell you what we talked about. And one of the things that he was going to say was that the client had disclosed to JP that she's going to be gone on Wednesday. The recruiter never called him back. So all day Monday, so the conversation took place Monday afternoon. We waited until the close of business day on Monday. Not a word from her. No response from emails, no response to voicemails, no, and we even texted her. JP even texted her. No response to the text, which is incredibly odd. This has never happened in the 30 years that he's been with this recruiting agency. It has always been, after he has an interview with a client that they set him up with, they're always right there to either call him or email. Hey, you got a minute? Let's talk about what happened on the interview. Did you like it? Let's chat. And then they immediately connect with the applicant, which in this case would be JP, and they say, did you like the job? Did you like the team? Do you like the manager? Do you think you can work there? What's going on? What should I say? And then usually the response is, yeah, everything's great. And so the recruiter then goes back to the client and says he's ready to start. So, and did you like him? And do you want him, or do you still want to field more candidates? Do you still want to field more applicants? That's usually how it goes. So JP had this great interview with this client for this big on-brand company where they're going to be working on a small creative tool, a very creative, innovative type of work. Nothing nefarious, guys. Don't worry about that. Really good stuff. And it just was like perfect for him. Very niche role, very, very specific and sort of creative, and something where they really need that architect in place, right? So he leaves messages for the recruiter on Monday. He leaves messages for the recruiter on Tuesday. No response. So for 2 days, he had this great interview with this client. And for the first time in his life, the recruiter who set up the interview, for the first time in 30 years since he's been with this agency, the recruiter is nowhere to be found. Ghosted him. And at this point, when we wake up Wednesday morning, the client, of course, disclosed to JP and emphasized to him, I need to make a decision Monday or Tuesday because I'm out of town on Wednesday. I'm leaving Wednesday. So we don't know where we stand. And my suspicion is that something happened to the recruiter where she either dropped the ball and didn't follow up with the client, Or maybe the client got very busy and didn't leave a message with the recruiter about her decision about the role and if JP or some other candidate would fill it. So what we did is Wednesday morning, we emailed the director of a particular department. This is not the recruiter's boss. We emailed the director of a particular department at this recruiting agency and said, here's what happened. This is really uncharacteristic for your company. I've been with the company for 30 years. Usually recruiters are, they want to know how interviews went with these big on-brand clients. And that person said, I will do my very best to find out what's going on. You'll hear back from me. And that was Wednesday morning, and we haven't heard a word. And it's Friday. So that's kind of where we are right now. We're very frustrated that even the most simple process about, getting a job, which is recruiter, sets up an interview for the applicant to meet with the client, even that has become a difficult sort of kind of fucked up process where we can't even get a straight answer from anyone. And, it would be breaking protocol and against the rules for the applicant to reach out to the client directly. And we're not going to do that. We're going to let the recruiting agency figure this out and figure out why, why the recruiter who works at the agency never contacted JP to find out how his interview went with this big on-brand client, right? So for this assignment. So that's where we are now. So we're still unemployed and we could really use your help. So please, if you get a chance, go to www.paypal.me/bookofours and make a donation. We're still $180 short of our $500 March goal. So that would really help if you could help us there. We've started the daily report. So in between the time that JP is looking for work, and just so you know, he is looking for work. And I'm going to make a side comment about what's happening to him as far as responses from people and where he stands versus where hundreds of thousands of other applicants are in the process. So paypal.me/bookofours is a great way to make a $10 or $20 donation to help us get closer to that $500 goal. Or you can become a patron at patreon.com/bookofours. And you can become a patron for as little as $2 a month. Substack, of course, has a subscribership option as well, where you can be a paid subscriber. And we have Buy Me a Coffee. We have all that stuff. So if you are so inclined, and we're not asking people to donate who simply can't afford it. That's not what we do. We're asking for people who have a little extra. If you've got an extra $10 or $20 laying around, send it our way so that we can make our goal. This is to supplement our income since on February 7th, JP's department was closed and all of his colleagues that he worked with in his department are out of a job, except of course for 2 women. So let's see what you guys can do to help us out in that sense. So regarding the process, I do want to say that at the beginning of the process, we started actually looking for work on January 23rd. On that date specifically is when we started the application process and started looking for other roles for him in either a corporate sector or in an environment that would sustain us. That started on January 23rd. And in January, the typical response was no response. Nothing. You would put your application out there and never hear back from the companies that claimed they were hiring or not. You would just never hear back. Since then, a stream of canned, automated rejection responses come through email, and they come within a week or so of applying. So at least in some cases, the companies are actually looking at resumes, portfolios, and design work and things like that, which wasn't the case at first. At first, it was just everyone was getting ghosted. Nobody was getting any response. Typically what you'll hear from people who are unemployed right now and looking for work, typically what you'll hear is, I didn't get my first interview until 3 months or 4 months or even 6 months into being unemployed. And JP's had how many? 2, 3? 3.
It's the time of year too.
It's also the time of year. But what I'm saying is that February 7th is when his job was eliminated, when his department was eliminated. And it's March 21st. And he's already had 3 interviews. And he's got another one on Monday coming up. So, and it's a multi-tiered interview. And that's another thing that I forgot to mention, is that you don't just hand your application over, say, great, let's have an interview next Tuesday, and go in next Tuesday and sit down with someone and that's it. No, with these levels of interviews, you have to meet with 4, 5, sometimes 6, 8 people. And so that's why I call them multi-tiered. So you'll meet with people usually through Zoom or through Teams, which is kind of like Skype. And you'll meet with different levels of people in different departments, different managers of different departments. And so it takes a lot longer. And then you have to go through a background check, which takes a week to 10 days. So you could go through the interview process, which takes about a week. And then if all of those people that you've met with agree that they like you, then you start a background check. And that takes another week to 10 days. So just because someone goes on an interview doesn't mean they're going to start a job like the following Monday. It takes a long time. So for people on, typically on LinkedIn and various other sources, we're saying, I didn't even get my first interview until I was, 6 months, until I was employed for 6 months. And for JP to have 3 within 1 month is pretty good. So something is definitely turning a corner. I think when you're dealing with financial quarters, we're coming up on the second financial quarter of 2025, which is April 2025. Funding streams open up. Companies have a little more leeway to work with hiring new people, and more opportunity presents itself. So that could be another reason why JP's had so many interviews and been taken so seriously. So I wanted to kind of give some context regarding that. It's definitely not like what you're used to. It's definitely not like what being unemployed was even 10 years ago, let alone 20 or 30 years ago, maybe the last time some of our followers were unemployed, right? Okay. So switching gears a little bit, let's go ahead and put the piece that I want to read. Let's go ahead and put it on stream. So this is, you pronounce his name, I believe it's Saikat Chakrabarti. And this is written by Club des Cordeliers, or Club des I always pronounce it Club des Cordeliers, but sometimes I mispronounce it on purpose because I know that his name is Jake. And I know who he's related to, or who he's married to. And I don't like the person he's married to, but so far I like him. I've found nothing really offensive about him. Obviously, this is not what he looks like. That's just a picture of probably a revolutionary from the past, because he's one of these kind of, I'm a Marxist, communist, revolutionary type person or whatever. So not that I agree with everything that they say, but when they write something good like this, I want to make sure that I give it some credibility. I want to, share it. So Saikat Chakrabarti's radioactive campaign, AOC's Svengali would use the military to outflank nuclear safety regulations. Saikat Chakrabarti, the Silicon Valley multimillionaire and former AOC staffer who hopes to unseat Nancy Pelosi in 2026, touts a Green New Deal style platform that seems almost tediously familiar at first glance. Just to pause here, JP and I, or mostly JP, worked on a campaign for a similar individual, Shahid Buttar, who is part of the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They're concerned about things like free speech on the internet. And he has a constitutional law background. He also ran in this same position in 2015 or something, 2016.
Yeah, no, 2018. The year we moved to Pittsburgh.
It was the same year we moved to Pittsburgh. Okay, so it was 2018 that Shahid also ran. And so
And then he ran again.
And then he ran again. But while we were living in San Francisco, JP helped to run the campaign with the campaign manager, who's a friend of ours. So that was interesting. It gave us a little bit of insight into these types of things. So when this article popped up, it resonated with us personally because we'd sort of been here before, right? So tucked in among the climate crisis bullets, however, is a poison Easter egg, an alarming scheme to militarize nuclear power, subverting regulations that were designed to protect us from disaster. So I would ask you, how is this different from DOGE? How is this different from the current Trump administration, which seems to be all about reversing regulations that would protect us from harmful strategies that would hurt us in the long run? Those regulations exist for a reason. So even though he doesn't look at all like somebody who would even support Donald Trump or Elon Musk, it's the same thing. Subverting regulations that were designed to protect us. Okay. Chakrabarti's central policy document, Mission for America, appears on the website of his think tank, New Consensus, presumably co-authored by longtime crony Zach Exley. It is mostly Green New Deal boilerplate couched in leftoid language. However, where the document discusses an alleged need to greatly increase nuclear power, strikingly Reaganite rhetoric appears. Unfortunately, the current civilian nuclear regulatory regime makes developing new nuclear power facilities practically impossible. Chakrabarti has a solution. In brief, the candidate promises to cut red tape that hinders an envisioned bonanza of nuclear construction. Chakrabarti is little known to the public, but he is recognized in the Beltway as an admirably unscrupulous fundraiser. Really? Imagine that. Is he a SPAC king like Chamath Palihapitiya, one of the founders of Facebook, who is known for his unscrupulous fundraising skills? I'm just adding that in there. And the brains behind AOC's early career. He first came to my attention when he appeared in a promotional video sporting a T-shirt with a picture of Subhash Chandra Bose, and I apologize if I'm butchering that name, a nationalist leader much celebrated by the current right-wing government of India. Bose's fascist sympathies and close relationship with Nazi Germany make him a curious icon for a self-styled leftist. Bhagat Singh would have been the obvious choice, so my radar pinged. Chakrabarti was the mastermind of Justice Democrats. Oh my God, do you remember Justice Democrats? Yeah. Oh my God, that's a blast from the past. The supposedly progressive organization that auditioned mediagenic nobodies and used them to unseat liberals in solidly Democratic districts. Well, that's exactly what happened with AOC. A much beloved, solid, old school, working class Democrat was in AOC's district. And he was actually slated to win. I forget his name. It was Joe something or other. And he was, and basically he had his his role, his seat, and even his votes stolen from him, and AOC's fake votes were put in his place. And the whole business of her, when she was like at a bar, all dressed in white or something, when it was announced that she won her district, and she did the whole Hillary Clinton. Remember that when Hillary Clinton was like pretending to be shocked that she won the nomination? AOC had that exact same look on her face. So this whole thing was just rigged from the beginning. Remember that? I don't know if you remember that, JP.
I do.
Okay, so he made headlines in 2019 as AOC's Svengali authoring the Green New Deal proposal that was to be her trademark. As an intemperate tweet revealed, the plan was concocted behind the scenes in collaboration with unnamed stakeholders, presumably representatives of the corporations that stood to benefit from the billions it promised to spend. He was soon dismissed from AOC's team, reportedly because his arrogant style infuriated mainstream Democrats. So here's what I don't understand about the Democrats. They found somebody who was like, let's just call it like it is. Dude was committing fraud in her campaign. But instead of saying, yo, dude was committing fraud in my campaign and I had to fire him, they turn it into, oh, he was arrogant and he hurt my feelings. And me too. Why don't they just say the truth? You know, that he's a fucking fraudster, just like all of them. Anyway, he then disappeared into a climate change think tank for some years, resurfacing in February as a surprise challenger to the senescent and potentially vulnerable Pelosi. As of this writing, which again is in February of 2025, so just last month, as of this writing, his chances seem slim, but there is no predicting what a slick, well-funded campaign might accomplish in a district chock full of youngish techies. For reasons discussed further below, Chakrabarti needs to be taken very seriously. It's worth looking ahead to ponder why a self-described progressive is suddenly waving the tattered banner of nuclear power. Returning to the regulatory red tape decried by Chakrabarti, it is not mere bureaucratic rigmarole. It is a safety regime that governs reactor design and construction, operational safety, waste management, and emergency preparedness. The regs are intended to protect the people from contaminated water and soil, see Hanford Nuclear Reservation, and from deadly nuclear accidents. Much of the current regulatory framework is a response to the near disaster at 3 Mile Island and to actual catastrophes like Chernobyl and Fukushima. According to the Union of Concerned Scientists, existing regulations are far from the bureaucratic stranglehold imagined by Chakrabarti. If anything, they are generally too weak to ensure public safety and overly concessive to the notoriously corrupt nuclear power industry. Chakrabarti disagrees. Mimicking industry propaganda, he insists that nukes are safe, clean, climate friendly, and absolutely necessary. Looming in the near future are vast new electricity requirements for vehicles, homes, buildings, and industry, a need vaguely linked to the transition of a clean economy or the transition to a clean economy. Presumably, he means you'll need more juice after the Great Reset dismantles your oil furnace and confiscates your Chevy. The inevitable crisis, he asserts, can only be met by the exigent construction of multiple nuclear power plants. Coyly elided is the true reason for the coming explosion in energy demand. That is the gargantuan data centers required by big tech. In order to fuel AI processing, and this is something that we have repeated ad nauseum for years, in order to fuel AI processing, smart cities and buildings, in other words, not to mention sweeping digital surveillance, staggering amounts of power will be needed by OpenAI, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and the like, and these tech behemoths are not shy about lobbying for it. Last month, Oracle chairman Larry Ellison announced that Oracle was designing a data center that would consume more than 1 gigawatt that would be powered by 3 small modular nuclear reactors, or SMRs. Then Microsoft also got in on the act when it was announced that it had done a deal with U.S. utility Constellation to restart the 835 milliwatt. Is that what MW is? Megawatt. Sorry. And what's the GW? Gigawatt?
Yeah.
So the 835 megawatt 3 Mile Island Unit 1 nuclear power plant to power its data centers. Anxious not to be left out, Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, said they too were working on 1 gigawatt data centers and saw money being invested in the SMRs. Finally, Sam Altman of OpenAI, the creator of ChatGPT, has trumped them all by pitching the idea of 5 gigawatt data centers to the White House. Altman has been heard talking of building 5 to 7 of these leviathans. The plans for ChatGPT alone would consume more electricity in a year than the UK. Oh my God. The 6th largest economy in the world managed to generate. Now consider what the total demand is going to be when you add in the requirement of the likes of Amazon, Oracle, Microsoft, Meta, Google, and X. With vast expansion in the offing, both big tech and the nuclear power industry will be delighted by Chakrabarti's candidacy. Especially welcome will be his gift for cloaking ruling class programs in green-tinged faux socialist bafflegab. The real, I like that word. The real clincher, however, is his novel and markedly sinister scheme to smuggle in nuclear power through the back door. Again, echoing industry propaganda, the document sneeringly notes the deeply entrenched misunderstanding and fears of nuclear power among the American public. Since we're evidently too stupid, I was just going to say that. I haven't read this before, you guys. Since we're evidently too stupid to know what's good for us, Chakrabarti proposes a propaganda campaign, much like the wall-to-wall COVID marketing blitz, to educate the public about the safety of nuclear power and dispel long-held myths and misunderstanding of its imagined dangers. Nuclear power, you see, has been stigmatized due to irrational fear of exposure to low-level radiation. Even the Fukushima and Chernobyl disasters were no more dangerous than taking a long-distance flight. Wow. Oh my God. Anyone familiar with the deeply unsettling safety record of the nuclear power industry or with the frightful effects of nuclear radiation on the human body will recognize this as a vulgar whitewash that could have been drafted by Lyndon LaRouche. Oh my God. It's also an extension of the decades-long climate change crusade that has perverted the environmentalist movement, transforming activists justly suspicious of radioactive pollution into a lavishly funded cadre demanding a carbon-neutral future at any cost. But that's another story. Chakrabarti recognizes that brainwashing the public will take time, and the supposed existential crisis requires immediate action. His solution? Call in the military, which is exempt from civilian safety regulations and free to slap together dubious reactors without interference from democratic process. Wow. The scheme begins with the accelerated construction of nuclear power plants on military bases across the U.S. The military will say no, maybe? I would hope. Well, I mean, there were a good amount of military that resisted the COVID shot. So maybe a good amount of military will also resist accelerated construction of nuclear power plants on their bases, blending military know-how with the expertise and labor of the civilian nuclear industry. Energy thus created will be connected to the civilian power grid. Next, once the military program establishes nuclear power as safe and necessary, it will be time to leverage the president's emergency powers to overcome traditional regulatory roadblocks, kicking off a nationwide nuclear construction boom. If Congress won't get on board, so much the better. Executive orders will do just fine. Out with the democracy Chakrabarti claims to support, and in with the authoritarianism he claims to oppose. If
nuclear regulatory commission, right? I mean, that crosses so many boundaries. That proposal crosses so many boundaries.
I know. It's almost cartoonish. Yeah. If Chakrabarti gets his way, nukes are coming to your town whether you like it or not, courtesy of the U.S. war-making machine. Wow, and that makes me feel so comfortable since we live just up the street from an Air Force field.
Yeah.
Base.
We live 2 blocks away from the Air Force.
We live 2 blocks away from an Air Force base. That's interesting. The end in view is a wholesale militarization of the energy supply, creating synergies that will marry the untapped potential of military resources with civilian endeavor. And it's all for the benefit of a putatively private industry, big tech, that is already well used to working hand in glove with the government. Your tax dollars at work. Any resemblance to the wartime fascist economy is purely coincidental. Could Chakrabarti pull this off? 18-term Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, backed by Getty money and comprehensively connected to the ruling class, is of course a formidable opponent. Chakrabarti's campaign website, as distinct from the policy site quoted earlier, seeks to exploit the party's current disarray by suggesting that fresh ideas and new blood are essential if the Democrats are to rebuild their appeal. He attacks Pelosi as the very embodiment of geriatric leadership that has squandered voters' loyalty and alienated youth. Already, the press is echoing the themes, questioning whether Pelosi has the willingness or the capacity to take one more turn around the track. In order to spread this message, Chakrabarti is quite capable of building a massive war chest. A founder of Justice Democrats, he stitched together a complex, off-the-books network of interlocking PACs and possibly fictitious organizations. These were designed to fragment big checks into thousands of small donations, flouting contribution limits and reporting requirements. Corporate and ruling class money was laundered so that support for Justice Democrat candidates could be presented as organic and free of obligations. A 2019 FEC complaint filed by the conservative think tank described the illegal scheme in highly convincing detail, and the agency did nothing. The press predictably dismissed the allegations as a conspiracy theory. So he'll do the same thing that he did with Justice Democrats. He will create fictitious organizations to launder money. He will create off-the-books interlocking campaigns, and he'll stitch it all together to support this idea of the expansion of the militarized nuclear footprint, and this bizarre marriage with civilian life, all for the benefit of big tech. So when people tell you who they are, you should probably believe them, is what I'm saying. And how he constructed the Justice Democrats campaigns, and how he was I'm not reading, by the way, this is me talking, and how he was able to manipulate people, manipulate funding, manipulate the media and all of that. That should be your lesson. That should be your view, your very clear view of what he will do with this campaign. Inevitably, big money from Silicon Valley will be lavished on Chakrabarti's candidacy and laundered through his system. He'll be a contender in 2026, and even a narrow loss will position him as successor when the 84-year-old Pelosi retires. we best pay close attention lest we wake up one day soon to a landscape befouled by countless potential Fukushimas. All right. That is a really good article. Short, packs a good punch. Really enjoyed it. I really, recommend it. And I want to thank my friend for bringing it to my attention. We've been so busy on our end looking for work and things like that I rely on our viewers and I rely on our friends to bring us good content so that we can repeat it and read it and get it out there. So once again, let me go ahead and put myself back up on the screen. Hello. So once again, we are looking to make that $500 goal, and we are $180 short of our $500 March goal. We are in the middle of looking for work since February 7th. JP has been unemployed from our main source of income, has been separated from our main source of income along with his male colleagues, and the department was eliminated. So if you could please donate, and if you don't want to donate, if you would prefer to send a gift, and that's, we accept anything, even food. You can email me at info@book-of-hours.com, and I'll give you my snail mail address here on the Gulf Coast, and you can send me a treat, or you can send me a donation that way and send the house, something for the household. So I appreciate that. All right. Well, keep us in your thoughts and prayers. We really appreciate all of the good energy and good thoughts that are coming from you regarding this challenging time. And we more than appreciate your support and your friendship in all of this. I should be back next Friday for a reading. Maybe I'll have some good news about the job situation and the job market and all that, especially here at home. We'll see. We're just trying to stay upbeat, keep a positive attitude, but also we are very much aware of the reality of the situation, which is why we decided to run this campaign where we're looking for $500 a month to supplement an income that is now lost. So thank you again for all of your support, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
You can help us continue our work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/bookofhours, or leave us a one-time donation at paypal.me/bookofhours. Or you can use CashApp. Thank you.